My mother cheated on my dad with a 5-year-old, and my sisters covered for her while stealing $200K from the business. But when I told my father, he fired them all, and the lover's family left him on the street with nothing. I'm 27 years old. I work at my father's logistics company here in Michigan, and honestly, I need to tell this story because what happened last year literally destroyed my family. Or rather, exposed that my family was already destroyed, and I was the only one who didn't know it. I guess I should start from the beginning, or at least from the moment I started noticing something was wrong, which was like a year and a half ago, more or less. My family was always, let's say, normal. My dad, Robert, has a logistics company that he built from scratch himself. I mean, the guy worked like an animal for years to build that business. He travels quite a bit. Sometimes he's away for a whole week, closing deals or solving problems with clients, business stuff. My mom, Jennifer, was a housewife, although technically she worked in the company office doing, administrative things, but nothing heavy. I have two older sisters, Sarah, who's 30, and Emily, who's 28, and both of them also. I worked at the company. I joined like 5 years ago after finishing college. I basically started from the bottom, really learning the business, not like my sisters who always had more comfortable positions because, well, they were daddy's princesses. I always noticed that my mom and my sisters were very close, like too close, like they had their own club that my dad and I were excluded from. They made plans together, went shopping, went to the country club, that kind of stuff. At first, I didn't think much of it. I thought it was normal. Girl stuff, I guess. But looking back, I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there, and I was too naive or stupid to notice them. Everything started to change like a year and a half ago, when one night my dad and I were in his study, having a whiskey, which we did every now and then after work. He was kind of weird that night, quiet, thoughtful, and suddenly he says to me, "Tyler, do you feel like your mom and your sisters exclude us?" And I was like, "What?" But the truth is, I had noticed it. I told him yes, that sometimes I felt like they had their own thing and we were on the outside. My dad kept staring at his glass and said, "I feel lonely in my own house, son. Your mom barely talks to me. She's always busy with the girls, and when I'm home I feel like I'm in the way." It broke my heart to hear him say that because my dad is literally the most hardworking and dedicated guy I know, and thinking that he felt that way in his own house made me angry. Although at that moment I didn't know who exactly to be angry with. After that conversation, I started paying more attention, and the things I saw I didn't like at all. My mom went out all the time, always with my sisters, and when I asked where they were going, they'd tell me vague things like to the club, to lunch, shopping, stuff like that. But what really made me suspicious was the money. Suddenly my sisters had like a lifestyle that didn't match their salaries. I mean, Sarah bought herself a new BMW, Emily started wearing designer clothes like Gucci and those expensive brands. And my mom was also carrying Louis Vuitton purses and shoes that easily cost $1,000 a pair. I worked at the company. I knew the numbers. I knew how much my sisters made, and they couldn't afford that lifestyle. Not even close. One day at the office, I decided to check some things. Nothing too invasive at first. I just wanted to see if there was anything weird. I started noticing strange transactions, large cash withdrawals, expenses that didn't make much sense, and they were all approved by Sarah and Emily, who handled part of the company's finances. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the seed of suspicion was already planted in my head and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Things came to a head, one Saturday around mid-year. My sisters and my mom went out together again. They said they were going to the club to eat and then shopping. Something in my head told me follow them. I don't know why. Intuition, I guess. I felt like an idiot driving behind them, trying not to be obvious, but I needed to know what was going on. They arrived at the country club, so far so normal, but when I went in like half an hour later and looked for them, I saw them at a table with a guy I'd never seen in my life. This guy, later I found out his name was Brandon, was young, like he was about 25 years old, maybe younger, and he was sitting very close to my mom. Very close. You know what I mean? My mom was laughing, touching his arm, and my sisters were there like nothing, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. I stayed watching from afar, hidden like a stalker in my own club. And I saw how this Brandon gave my mom a kiss on the lips. A real kiss, not a friend's kiss. I felt like I was going to throw up right there. I didn't confront anyone that day. I left the club and drove aimlessly for like an hour, trying to process what I had just seen. My mom was cheating on my dad, and my sisters not only knew it but were there, facilitating it, covering for her, being accomplices. I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't process that my own family was capable of doing something like that. That night, I waited for my sisters to come home. We all still lived in the family home. It was a big house. I confronted them in the living room. I told them what I had seen, and their faces, God, their faces showed neither shame nor surprise, just annoyance that I had discovered them. Sarah told me, Tyler, it's not what you think, but I yelled at her that I had just seen Mom kissing a guy who looked like he was my age. Emily tried to calm down, told me that the thing between Mom and Dad had been dead for years, that Dad was never home, that Mom deserved to be happy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told them, so you're just going to help her cheat on Dad? That's the plan? Sarah got defensive and admitted that yes, that Brandon had been in Mom's life for like 2 years already, that they knew him and approved of him because Mom was happy with him. 2 years? Imagine, 2 fucking years. And I had no idea. I asked them where they got the money for their whole new lifestyle, because I knew their salaries weren't enough, and that's when their faces changed. That's when I saw fear. Emily started stuttering something about bonuses, but Sarah cut her off and said, Look, Tyler, Dad has money. We work for him. We deserve more than what he pays us, so we take what we're owed. At that moment, I understood that they weren't just covering up the affair, they were also stealing from the company. I felt so betrayed, so furious, that I had to get out of there before I did or said something I'd regret. I went to my room and spent the whole night awake thinking about what to do. Did I tell my dad? Did I keep the secret? Did I mind my own business? But the truth is, it wasn't just my business. My dad was being betrayed by his whole family except me, and I wasn't going to be part of that. The next day, I confronted my mom. She was in the kitchen having coffee like nothing, and I came in and told her we need to talk about Brandon. Her face went pale, but she quickly changed to a defensive expression. I sat across from her and asked her directly how long she'd been cheating on Dad. She didn't even deny it, just sighed and said, Tyler, my marriage to your father ended years ago. He's never here. He only cares about his company. I was dying of loneliness. I told her that was no excuse to cheat on him, that if she was so unhappy she should have gotten divorced, but she laughed bitterly and said, and give up this house, this lifestyle, the financial security? Don't be naive. That's when I realized my mom wasn't the person I thought she was. She wasn't a victim of an unhappy marriage. She was a manipulator who wanted everything. The money and status of being married to my dad, and also the excitement of being with a young guy. I asked her about Brandon, who he was, and she told me with a pride that disgusted me that he came from a wealthy family, that his parents had a lot of money, that he didn't need to work. So, she was with a rich-kept kid. Great. I told her I was going to tell Dad everything, and she threatened me, told me that if I did that, I would destroy the family, that Dad would be left alone, that my sisters would never forgive me. I told her the family was already destroyed, that they had done that, not me. That same afternoon, I told my dad everything. It was one of the most difficult conversations of my life. We were in his study again, and I told him, Dad, there's something you need to know about Mom. I watched as his face crumbled while I told him everything. The affair with Brandon, the fact that my sisters knew and covered it up, the suspicions I had about the money. When I finished, my dad was silent for like 5 minutes, just looking out the window, and then he said, Thank you, son. I know this wasn't easy for you. The next few days were like a movie. My dad hired a private investigator who confirmed everything, got photos of my mom and Brandon together, hotel records, everything. We also hired an auditor to review the company's finances. And sure enough, Sarah and Emily had been diverting funds for almost 2 years, basically since the affair started. They weren't astronomical amounts that would bankrupt the company, but they easily added up to like $200,000 between the two of them, maybe more. That money had paid for the new cars, the designer clothes, the expensive vacations they'd taken, everything. My dad didn't waste time. One Monday morning, he called Sarah and Emily to his office and fired them on the spot. He told them he knew about the affair, he knew about the theft, and they had two options: resign without a scandal or face criminal charges for embezzlement. They chose to resign, obviously. He also froze all the accounts they had access to, cut their credit, cards, basically left them with nothing overnight. That same week, he filed for divorce. The affair became known quickly. We live in a community where everyone knows each other, and my dad made no efforts to keep it secret. I think part of him wanted everyone to know who Jennifer really was. And here's where it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Brandon's parents, who apparently are super conservative and religious, found out about the affair and that Brandon was with a married woman 20 years older than him. They didn't like it at all. At all. They cut him off completely, took away his access to the trust fund, took away the condo they'd bought him, took away the car, everything. Brandon went from being a rich kid without worries to being basically on the street in a matter of days. My mom panicked when Brandon called her crying, telling her his parents had cut him off. Suddenly, her young rich boyfriend wasn't so attractive when he was just as broke as any other, 5-year-old guy without a job. She tried to reconcile with my dad, sent him messages, called him crying, told him it had been a mistake, that she loved him. My dad completely ignored her, and I was proud of him for that. The divorce moved quickly because my dad had a solid prenup that my mom had signed when they got married like 30 years ago. She wasn't going to get much, basically minimum alimony, because she had been the one who cheated, and besides, she had been working. Sarah and Emily moved with my mom to a small apartment in a not-so-nice area of the city. Nothing compared to the 5-bedroom house where we'd grown up. It was like watching royalty fall from grace, literally. My dad also changed his will, completely removed my mom and my sisters and left everything to me, the company, the house, the investments, everything. He told me one night, and I told him he didn't have to do that, but he insisted, told me I had been the only loyal one, the only one who stood by his side when everything fell apart, and that meant everything to him. I'm not going to lie, I cried that night. Not from happiness about the inheritance, but because it hurt me to see my dad so broken, and at the same time, so grateful to me for simply doing the right thing. The months after the divorce were weird. My dad buried himself in work, traveled more than before if that was possible, and I basically took over the daily operations of the company. It turned out I was good at it, better than I thought. The company not only didn't suffer with Sarah and Emily's departure, but it improved because I hired really qualified people for their positions instead of family members who were only there through nepotism. My mom and my sisters tried to contact me several times. My mom sent me long messages saying I should understand her, that she had been unhappy, that she didn't plan to fall in love with Brandon. My sisters told me I was destroying the family, that I should help them reconcile with Dad. I ignored them all. I had nothing to say to them, honestly. The final blow came like 6 months after the divorce, when Emily got engaged to her boyfriend of years. She and Sarah came to the office to ask me to let them see Dad, that they needed to ask him to pay for Emily's wedding. Imagine the audacity. After everything they did, they thought Dad was going to drop like $50,000 for a wedding. I told them to leave, that Dad wasn't going to pay for anything, that they had made their bed and now they had to lie in it, literally. Sarah started crying, saying I had changed, that I'd become cold. I told her no, that I had simply grown up and learned who they really were. After that, I cut off all contact. I blocked their numbers, their social media, everything. My dad did the same. I don't know much about how they are now. I hear things from time to time through mutual acquaintances that my mom is working in retail, that Sarah got a job at another company but making much less, that Emily had a small wedding that she and her husband paid for. I don't really care. I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. My dad is better now. He met someone a few months ago, a woman his age who's also divorced, and he seems genuinely happy. They went out to dinner last week, and when he came back home, he still lives in the family home. I moved to my own place recently. He had a smile I hadn't seen on him in years. He told me, "Thank you, son, for everything." And I told him he didn't have to thank me for anything. That he's my dad, and I'll always be on his side. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing, if I should have handled things differently, if maybe I should have tried to maintain some kind of relationship with my mom or my sisters. But then I remember how they betrayed my dad, how they stole from the company he built, how they looked at me that day in the living room when I confronted them and didn't show even a bit of remorse, and I know I did the right thing. Loyalty means something to me, integrity means something, and they proved to have neither. Now they're living with the consequences of their decisions, and honestly, they deserve it. My dad and I are fine. The company is better than ever, and that's enough for me.